This was a nightmare. Debbie was her nightmare. She hasn't even gotten through the chapter 5 of her book, and now she was given another assignment. This was the time she wished she could really get a massage. She has been so tense lately. Ever since he left, she was really angry with herself. With him, he had left just when she was making progress on her book. Now she was stuck. The only inspiration she had was gone. She was just on chapter 4. Madame Lydia would be pissed. She typed in the words, Frank Nicholas. She has been working on it since she got the call from Debbie, but she had stopped halfway to complete the chapter 3 of her book. At least, if he wasn't going to be around, she could try to make something up. She got enough information about him, those that were important to Debbie, of course. She went through her sticky notes: an investor, a retail entrepreneur, philanthropist, founder and CEO of Frankie Sugar. She doesn't even know what Frankie Sugar is. Date of birth not needed. Dead wife, dead mother, no child. Sadly, this could mean no heir to the throne. Ouch. An African American, not important. Net worth $85.3 billion US. Oh my God, who is this man and why is he so important to Debbie? She wondered. Anyways, if it was important to Debbie, it was very important to her book. She wrote the name down in the note beside her pillow. She clicked on Wikipedia, copied and pasted the name. Came to Nigeria with his parents 20-something years ago to buy some properties. Not interesting enough. His product presently in more than 10 countries in the world. Oh, good for him. Below the headline, Frank Nicholas opening his 17th company at South Africa, was a picture of a group of suited men and women at the front of what could qualify as a billion-dollar company. They were all in sunshades, and in the middle sat a man who looked to be in his 70s. She knew instantly that he was the Frank Nicholas. The map of wrinkles on his face told of the most incredible journey. His forehead told of worries past and worries present, but mostly they were so deeply ingrained. They told of a man who had traveled through 7 decades, used all his youthful energy to work, to stand here as an old man, fulfilled, successful yet fallen. Rosa was deep in thought as she zoomed in the picture of the man so that only his face filled the screen of her laptop. His lips were coiled in a smile which revealed warmth, affection, but laughter that was long forgotten. This man is old. Why is Debbie interested in him? And those eyes, where has she seen them before? Are you through with what I asked you to do, Rosa? Debbie's voice startled her, and she was immediately jerked back to the real world. Oh my God, Debbie, you scared the crap out of me, she said, placing a hand on her chest, which was rising and falling. Debbie ignored her and walked to her bed. Is that the famous Frank? Rosa stared at her in disbelief. You don't even know him. Debbie gave a half shrug. I've never needed to know him until now. Rosa frowned, but she kept quiet. She watched as Debbie placed the laptop before her, and she sat on the bed, reading what was on her sticky notes. There was silence for a while until she heard her gasps. She knew she just read his net worth. Well, well, well. Rosa, darling, you have done a great job. Any info of when he's coming to Nigeria? Rosa shook her head. What about his type of woman? Slim, dark, tall, fair? Rosa frowned. This lady was unbelievable, yet she shook her head. Debbie was getting impatient. What about his favorite food or drink or hobby, anything at all? Rosa slightly shook her head as she remained mute. Then what have you been doing? Debbie snapped at her. Get me all those details now. He's not on the internet, Debbie. The man is very private, even with pictures. I only found this picture of his. There is no other. Frustration crinkled Debbie's eyes as she stood up. Find out when he's coming to Nigeria, Rosa. I give you 2 days. Rosa was about to protest, but Debbie walked out of the room. She exhaled sharply as she saw the time. She was going to be late for class. There was only one way to do this, and she had just the perfect idea. The whole class was quiet, with keen attention, as Neema read from her script. Her story was scary. So was everyone in the class. "You are scared already," a voice said beside Rosa, startling her. She whimpered. "I believe everyone in the class is scared," she replied quietly, her attention still on the reader. The intruder chuckled. "Take a look at Madam Lydia." Rosa looked towards where the lecturer sat, and she almost burst into laughter. "I am Luke." Rosa turned to take the first look at her seatmate, and she flushed. He was certainly the finest man she has ever seen. "Hello, I am Rosa," she replied shyly. He smiled, deepening his dimples. Rosa quickly looked away. She was getting uncomfortable. Just then, the whole class began to clap. She also did, as Neema was done with her narration. Madam Lydia walked to the front of the class and said, "That was the best narrative I've had this week, people. Did you hear everything she said? Did you see how she placed the words under her command and used them like she wanted? Did you see how she created fear in all our minds? This is what a good writer does. Words are your servants. They do your biddings." "How does she do that?" Rosa asked quietly, more to herself. "She is good," Luke replied. "She is very good. I feel so intimidated." Luke stifled. "Come on, you don't have to be, especially since I'm the next to narrate. I'm sure you have a good story there." Rosa rolled her eyes. "I wish." Luke suppressed a laughter, and they both paid attention to Madam Lydia. The class was quiet as the lecturer called out the next name, Rosalind Besson. Rosa's heart sank as she heard her name. She stood up as she felt all eyes on her. "Come on, girl. I hope you are giving me what I want. Applaud her, please." As she was about to step out of her seat, Luke pulled her back and said, "Believe in yourself, okay? Don't let the fear of striking out keep you from playing the game." She smiled. That actually calmed her shaking nerves a little bit. She nodded and advanced to the front of the class. She opened her script. The title is When a Woman Wants. "Excuse me, can you be specific?" said Madame. "What a woman wants," she replied nervously. "All right, we are all ears to know what we women want." There was a chuckle from the class, but she ignored it. Rosa shut her eyes, swallowed, opened her eyes, and read from the first line. "The alarm from my phone kicked me out of my dream world, back to the real world. I really hate that phone." She kept on reading, trying to make the words come to life, changing her pitch as she read. The dialogue between her characters, Jordan and Nancy. There were several modifications as pertaining to the real story. She had no time to think as she read all the 4 chapters. She could care less of what they think. She was actually at the last line of chapter 4. There was tears in her eyes as he embraced her. In my mind, I knew it was nothing but another charade. "I will miss you, love," she cried. He said nothing and gave a weak smile before kissing her on the cheek. He pulled away as it was time for his flight. Probably it was my thought or my imagination, but I felt her gaze lock slightly and something caught in my throat. He nodded at me and I primed my lips as I nodded back. We watched as he walked away with his bag. I felt a pang of sadness down in my belly, but I wasn't surprised when I felt her exhale. I knew she was relieved he was going. If she was relieved, why do I feel so sad? Afraid of looking up, she closed the script, unable to meet Madam Lydia's face. There was a murmur within the class. "What did you call the title again?" she queried. "What a Woman Wants," Rosa replied. "It's kind of boring at the start, but you are getting there. Make sure you build the story very well. Add suspense and make us draw for more. I love the love twist you are adding. Make sure you build it perfectly. Now, off you go. See you next month and be sure to have lots of write about." Rosa picked her script and was already walking to her seat. What had she gotten herself into? Just then, she heard the applause. They applauded her. She was surprised as she smiled and sat down beside Luke, who wouldn't stop grinning at her. "Well done, Rosa." "Thank you," Rosa replied. "Would you take lunch with me after class?" he asked. On one condition, she replied, his eyes glistened in curiosity. Shoot, how conversant are you with what is happening around you? I don't understand, he responded. Do you know Franiki, the richest man in the country, I think, and about his coming? He laughed. You have a business with him. She ignored him. There goes your lunch. All right. Everyone knows him. I really don't understand why so much frenzy about him. But yeah, he's coming. And I got a little bird who told me he'll be coming in the next couple of weeks. But if you have this lunch with me, I will tell you the specific date he will be around. She raised a brow. Did he just beat her at her own game? Wow, you are even smarter than I thought, she said to herself. Okay, handsome, you get to have a lunch with me. He grinned beautifully. Smooth. It's been over 2 weeks since she had told Debbie the exact date Franiki would be coming. Ever since then, Debbie had hardly stayed at home. Each time she was always with Vera. The last time she slept at home was about 9 days ago. She could feel something was about to go down. But what was her business? Her business was to keep writing. She had wanted it to be real initially. Now, her lecturer had told her to involve a love twist. She had no idea how she would involve that without making the whole plot seem fictional. She had wanted real. She climbed down from the bed as she heard a noise at the front of the door. She frowned. That was almost impossible. No one would be shouting like that. Debbie, you cheat, you hoe, come out so I could kill you right now. That sounded almost like Vera's voice. Were they in any argument? She stood up and rushed out of her room before the front door gets knocked down. The banging on the door got louder and harder. She opened the door only to find a pissed off Vera. She was sweating and shouting at the top of her voice. Vera, she's not here. What happened? Rosa asked as calmly as she could. She wasn't surprised with the look Vera gave her. That slut, that hoe, she took away all my life plan and took over one-time opportunity I had wanted for myself. She had all the men she could need, yet she took my one chance from me. Tell her that she just started a war, and I promise her I will kill her. Rosa couldn't understand what she just heard right now. Before she could reply, Vera had already driven out in her G-Wagon. Rosa sighed. This was even crazier than she had thought. Weren't they spending night and day together? What could have possibly gone wrong? Vera was Debbie's only friend. Was it possible for her to have betrayed the one friend she had? There must be an explanation for that. Just as she was about to close the door, another car drove in. It was Debbie's Toyota. She sighed and watched as she got down from her car, all smiles, in a new dress she hadn't seen on her before. Baby, I am going to be rich, wealthy and famous. The entire world will bow at my feet, she screamed, giggling. Vera just left here, Rosa stated, and the excitement vanished from Debbie's face. Oh, she knows it was me. Well, she was bound to know sooner or later. She was the one who told me the season is for the taking. Rosa couldn't understand. First Vera, now Debbie. Are you both okay? Just as Debbie was about to respond, her phone rang. Wait a minute, she said to her before putting the phone on her ear. Hi ma, it was her mother. She watched as Debbie looked surprised, then angry. She could hear her mother's voice even though she couldn't pick the words. She knew she was angry. Okay, I'll be there soon, ma. Debbie snapped at the phone before hanging up. We'll be back. She drove away in her car. Why is everyone acting all crazy? Rosa thought. By the time she got to her mother's house, it was already pouring. She had to run into the house so as not to get her hair wet. On getting inside, her mother was not in sight, but she could hear her voice coming from her bedroom. It seemed she was talking to someone. Curiously, she dropped her bag and walked towards her room. Her mother left her room door open, so Debbie could see her from the passageway as she recorded from the phone camera she held. She was in her bathrobe, talking to someone on the phone and opening her robe slowly in the middle with her left hand while staring at the phone she held in her right hand with parted lips and dreaming eyes. Tell me you want me. Do I excite you, lover boy? Dear Lord, Wasn't her mother too old for this? "Mom, what are you doing?" Her mother was terrified with the way she had shouted, not even looking ashamed. "What is your problem, girl? Didn't I teach you some simple courtesy? That you don't just barge into someone's room like that?" She sounded a little bit angry. "Sorry, madam. Pardon me, as I didn't know you were in something extremely important," David replied with sarcasm. "Whatever," her mother said. "By the way, what did you do to Vera?" David scoffed. It really pained her. "I thought she would be proud of me." "What did she tell you, mother?" "I remember just 2 words. Backstabbing, bitch and a woe," her mother replied. David laughed. She must have left, brilliant and ready to learn out. "Would you just tell me what you did and quit wasting my time?" "Mother, I did nothing that was bad. I actually took to her advice. She told me the season is for the taking. We take what we want, no matter what it costs us." Her mother seemed lost. "What does that even mean?" "Mother, she had a plan to sleep with Frankie." She hesitated to see her mother's reaction. She got none and continued. "It was a one-time opportunity, mother. I just had my own plans and I won." "You won what exactly? Luto?" "No, I met Frankie. I got to him before she could. Let's just say I made sure he remembered me once he settles down. If I'm not stupid, you said you backstabbed your friend and stole a man from her, right?" "Mom, he isn't just a man. This is Frankie, and do you even know what he's worth? You betrayed your only friend because of your own selfish interests, Debbie." "She would have done the same thing," Debbie retorted. "Was it just a fling?" Debbie almost laughed out. "No, mother. I cannot use my future to have a fling. I'm going to have that man for sure." Her mother stared at her. "Frankie, that old man that everyone is talking about. He is not as old as that, mother. No one has really seen his pictures." "So what will happen to Frank?" Debbie had expected that Frank would be left off the hook, mother. "Are we doing this again?" "Ma, the mistake you made me do was going through that stupid plan with you. Let him go. I don't want him. Right now, all I want is Frankie to have my attention." Her mother kept quiet, surveying her. "Why do you keep doing this?" Obviously, her mother wasn't angry that she backstabbed her friend. "Mother," she snapped, "I'm not here to ask for your support or your advice. You called me here, so please keep all what you're about to start because you made me waste my time with Frank all this while, and I'm not willing to do this again. So you want to marry an old man now, who is old enough to be your father?" her mother shouted. "Yes, mother. Now that you even made me realize, I really need that man since my mother never gave me fatherly care." She felt her mother wince. That usually worked every time. "Well, since you are desperate for a fatherly care, I hope he doesn't die on the night of your wedding." "No, mother, he wouldn't die until he has made me his wife. And when he dies, I will have everything." Her mother laughed. "You are really that stupid, right?" "I know you meant clever, mother." "No, daughter. If you are clever with a good brain, you won't be talking like a desperate gold-digging hoe." Debbie laughed. That really cracked her up. Did he care to just call the pot black? This is getting too hot right now. She really needed to leave this place. "Mother, all I can see right now is jealousy. If you were a good mother, you would be happy for me and you would support me. How dare you call me a hoe? Did you see what you were doing before I came home? Selling yourself cheaply, all in the name of having a man. Do you see I am the true daughter of my mother?" Her mother flinched. "I am only protecting you so that you wouldn't make the same mistake I made. Please stay with the man that loves you so you won't end up like me, lonely and miserable." Her mother pleaded. "I do not need your protection, mother. Besides, the only difference between us is that I am clever enough to use what I have to get what I want. And I don't mind stepping over anybody, even my own mother." Her mother stared at her. "What are you saying?" Debbie stood up. She was beginning to despise her mother right now. She had known she would only try to hold her down. She knew what she needed to do. "I am saying goodbye to you, mother. And you can give yourself those cheap pieces of advice. I wonder why the advice never worked for you. I won't come here again, and I promise you, the next time you will hear of me, I would have become the first lady of Frank Nicholas. Then go and never come back. I'll be waiting for you one day when your tail will be hanging in between your legs." Debbie scoffed. "Keep dreaming, mother. Don't bother to wait, because this is the last time you'll be seeing me here. I am really happy you are back, dude. I've really missed you. But don't ever pull that stunt again, else I will really kill you this time." Francis laughed. "I am sorry, babe. I didn't plan to be back so early also. I meant to stay for like 6 months and not just 4 months. But I realized something which encouraged me to come home. You could have called at least. By the way, what happened? I met someone there, also a doctor. He was also a volunteer. His mother was among the casualties. He grew up with his foster parents in the States. His biological mother, who lived in Haiti, recently contacted him that they should meet. After a long conversation on the phone, he told her he didn't want to meet her. She pleaded and did everything. A day after, the unfortunate happened, and that was how he finally lost her forever. So he came to Haiti, the woman was dead, and he now lives in regret. The story touched me, so I decided to leave and meet my father. Yeah, I am excited. Now that you have come back to your senses, how do you want to do that? Angela asked curiously. I already called my father's PA, Mr. John. He's going to pick me. I just need to give him a time, though he is already on my neck, Francis replied. Wow, I'll be seeing your face in the magazines and the TV. You'll be a superstar, Angela cried excitedly. No, I don't want that. I'm a very private person, and the spotlight is not my thing. Even more exciting, I heard Frank Nicholas only has one picture on the internet. He is also a very private person. Well, I guess we have lots in common, after all, replied Francis. By the way, have you spoken to Romeo? Angela hissed. Please don't talk to me about that dog. I don't want to talk about him. What happened? I don't want to talk about him, okay? Angela snapped at him. The whole frenzy about the new person coming to join the house was too much for her. She could hardly concentrate on her writing. She needed to sneak out of the house with her laptop bag, a face cap and her headphones. She climbed down the flight of stairs. She remembered when they had moved into the mansion. It was like all those houses you see in the movies, and she couldn't but wonder at the beauty of the mansion. A feeling of relief came over her as she noticed that her spot had not been taken. She sat down and placed her laptop on her laps. She opened it and pressed a button on the keyboard. The chapter 7 stared back at her. She needed to be focused and get things done. The next class was tomorrow, and she had no idea how to fix the love twist yet. How would she get inspiration with everything that has been happening? The way they had ended up in Franicki's mansion was still like a movie to her. It was too fast for her. Even normal dating takes time, right? How had Debbie pulled that up? She had separated herself from both mother and her closest friend. Yet she was doing even far better than she had ever done. Sometimes she praised herself. She would do anything to get what she wanted, even if it meant using her body. Rosa scoffed at this thought. To Debbie, her body was the easiest thing for her to use, so long as she got what she wanted, and it seemed to be working really well for her. On a normal day, people would expect such a bad girl would suffer at the end of the day, but as Rosa could see, Debbie got better and better, and she was now the queen of the Frank Nicholas mansion. Talking about the man, Rosa remembered the first time she had seen him. She had only seen him few times around the house. He wasn't really different from the way he had looked in the picture. He just seemed real, more real, and those eyes that stared at her seemed to bore down to her skull. She remembered he had felt too familiar to her, but why? She sighed. She had just left the house, and now she was still thinking about the house. Her class was tomorrow, and she was still at chapter 7. The way Debbie had screwed Vera over was still a misery to Rosa. She remembered she had come to the house after leaving her mother's house on that very day, and she kept laughing and talking about how she would make her life better alone. She also said something about locking Vera up in her apartment. while she took over. It seemed to be very amusing for her as she kept laughing that night. Rosa could understand Vera must have shared her plan to get Frankie to herself with Debbie, and she had in turn used the plan for herself after locking Vera up in a room. That was really horrific. How was she going to include that in her book? Perhaps, if she could get the way it happened, it would surely add an intrigue to the book. She needed to probe Debbie, but that would be later. She also remembered before they moved into the mansion, John had spent the night twice at Debbie's house, and few weeks later, she got to meet Frank Nicholas. There was no doubt she had an affair with John, and that was how he fixed her up with Frank Nicholas. Debbie asked her to move with her because she was the one who knew almost all her secrets, and she wasn't ready to let her go just like that with all those secrets. If she couldn't come up with a love twist yet, she could give Madam Lydia this tomorrow. She could fix this into her plot. Just one thing, she had to be very careful. Debbie must not read this. She smiled. She already had something to write. Leaving the house had been a good idea after all, as she began to type. She hates the man a lot. He should sack him soon enough. Who does he even think he is? If not for what she needed him for, he didn't worth saying hi to her. Thinking of it, how could her husband even get someone like him to be his special advisor or PA? Now that he was married to her, he only needed to trust her. She hissed. What would it have cost him to just give her details of the child that was coming to join? The way John has responded was really mean. You don't need to know anything. All you need to know is that the heir to Francis Nicholas is coming home to his father's house. Dear God, this was fate. She had just renounced her mother, and now she was going to be a mother to another's child. She was going to be as nice as possible. Probably get the child a present, a toy. Where he was coming from, no one knew except John, and that limpy bastard wouldn't tell her anything unless she had sex with him. They had a deal that the affair would stop if he didn't get her to meet Frank. He was more than ready to help, and he eventually got her to move into the mansion. It was a dream come true for her, and too easy. Within 3 months, she had moved in. Francis Nicholas had said to her, John said, I need someone to be taking care of me, and you are very beautiful. Can you do that? Just like that, she had moved in the next day. She wasn't bothered, since she had all she needed, fame, as she soon started getting the press in the house. Yes, Frank was a very private person, but she wasn't. She soon started getting featured on World's Hot TV programs, and her pictures were at the front of some magazines. Everyone wanted to meet the queen of the mansion. She was finally living the life she wanted, and she was always traveling around the country and outside for events Frankie wouldn't attend. She knew if the president's wife was more famous than she was right now, she would soon catch up in few weeks. She kept receiving several abusive messages on her social media pages from Vera and some people she called haters, but they didn't bother her. She got to know that Vera was not in the country anymore, so there was little she could do to hurt her. The ring had come in some weeks later, and that was how she became Debbie Nicholas. John had told her not to invite the press, but he can never tell her what she ought to do and what she ought not to do. The man had certainly forgotten his place. She had called the press people shortly after John left to bring their guests. You should have initiated something on the twist before coming to the class. I know, but I thought giving her something different would shift her attention from that. Luke shook his head in total disagreement. Yes, you thickened the plot, and she could have loved it if you had included it after putting the love twist. That was why she wasn't pleased. Now you have to do it again. I know, Luke. I would chip in the love twist she so much desires. What is her problem with love anyways? Luke chuckled. You should ask her. So tell me about yourself, Luke said. Your family, where you stay, your best food. I want to know everything. She blushed as his hand touched hers. Well, she started. I am an only child. Parents be gone for a while, kicked from one foster home to the other, and now I am working and sending myself to school. Wow. Sorry about your folks. How long had it been and what do you do now? Just as she was about to answer, she heard someone say, "Oh, see that gold digger at Frank Nicola's house." Rosa turned around and noticed the lady who spoke was looking at the TV. She did the same. Debbie was talking to a group of press and she was looking really beautiful in her flowing gown. Rosa felt a light squeeze on her finger. She had completely forgotten Luke was there. "I'm sorry, Luke. I was really distracted by the TV." So here comes the lost but found prince of the mansion. We hope he is not as camera shy as his father. Rosa forgot what she was saying and directed her gaze back to the TV. The camera had shifted from Debbie and she noticed some men coming out of the car. She recognized John and he was really pissed. He came directly at the camera, which seemed to back away. There was a bit of struggle and noise from the press people. "Cover Francis, guards," John shouted, and guards in black suits came around to form a circle around this man. More struggle as everyone tried to see the man. Rosa was confused. Weren't they expecting a child? Who was this man? Rosa whimpered. "Are you okay, Rosa?" Rosa stared at Luke, who looked deeply worried. "I am sorry, Luke. I have to go." She took her bag and fled. She had no idea how she was able to get back to her room in one piece without being carried. She had literally walked like a blinded zombie. Her chest was rising and falling rapidly. This could not be happening. No! This was a terrible nightmare, one she needed to wake up from. Oh God! Could it be true? Did she just see Francis? Or were her eyes deceiving her? The same Francis whom she had promised to wait for instead. She had lost his ring that very day he traveled. She had even changed her numbers so that he wouldn't be able to reach her. Had he come back here to torment her? Had he died in Haiti and had turned into a ghost who was now in the house? Did everyone see what she saw, or was the whole thing just her hallucination? She really wished she hadn't gone behind John to call the press. She knew half of the country must have seen her expression on the screen. She bit her lips in regret. What if her mother had seen that? Or Vera? She could imagine the triumphant look on her mother's face. God! Damn it, she cried. There was a knock on the door, and Rosa rushed towards her. She had never felt so thankful and relieved to see Rosa. She sobbed while she held her tightly. "What happened?" Rosa asked. "I saw the whole thing on TV. I couldn't even believe it," Debbie sighed. "I am doomed, Rosa. What do you want to do?" "They will soon call you to join at the table. I saw that the welcome party has started already. I cannot leave this place. Not with the effort I have put in this. I had to leave my mother. Would I go back empty-handed? That would be a total shame and disgrace. I'd rather die." A gentle knock sounded on the door. "Who is it?" Debbie asked loudly. "Sir Frank said to bring you Miss Debbie." One of the guards, Steve, stared. "Everyone is waiting for you, Debbie," Rosa stated. Debbie sighed more loudly. She managed to stand up. "What will you do?" Rosa asked. "I will wait for his reaction first. Meanwhile, you should start getting our things ready," she replied sadly before walking out of the room. The hall was filled with guests from different parts of the country. Most of them, whom Debbie could recognize, were big politicians of the country, as well as popular philanthropists. The place was beautifully adorned with colorful balloons, ribbons, and several ornamentals. There was a big display of welcome home, son. Debbie's throat got tightening as she realized Francis Nicholas was standing with Francis, holding his hand proudly as they joked with the rest of the big men. They hadn't spotted her as she walked closer. It seems the air around was beginning to choke her. She could hardly breathe. This was her day of reckoning. As they were few inches apart, Frank spotted her and said something to the group of men. Just then, they all turned so they could take proper look at her. Then he turned too and spotted her. The music that was playing seemed to fade slowly as he looked at her. Her chest was beating so fast, She was afraid. Everyone in the room could hear it. She had never seen him look so relaxed. Why was he looking so handsome than he actually used to be? Was it part of more torture? She would really appreciate if she could faint right now, or have a stroke, or a seizure. The look he gave her wasn't that of surprise. He was smiling. She looked down instantly as Frank held her hand, drawing her closer to him. She faked a smile. Everyone, meet Debbie, my beautiful baby, who has been taking care of me since I got into the country. Frank introduced her proudly as the men raised their glasses to her. Somehow, she caught the sight of the women at the other corner, gawking at her, sending dagger of hatred and envy towards her with their looks. She is really beautiful, one of the men said. You made a good choice, Frank. Young blood is good for an old body. The rest laughed. Francis Jr. didn't. Before I introduce the two of you, I need to do something. Frank started. This beautiful lady has helped me in getting over the fear of the media and the camera and so many other things. I never was a man that loved publicity. She just came and turned the whole thing around. She is the face of the Franike investment and she is my wife. Thanks to her, I feel so young and vibrant. There was a loud cheers from the room once more. Francis grinned widely. He was obviously enjoying this. He stepped closer to her. Debbie, meet Francis, my son. Francis, this is Debbie, my wife. Debbie almost wished the floor could swallow her. This was too embarrassing for her. It is a great pleasure to meet you, madam. I hope we'll get to know each other more. It took all Debbie's power not to break down and cry. The shame was too much for her. Why don't we all go take a seat and eat our first lunch together as a family? By the way, Debbie, please assign someone to take care of my son, to attend to him, I mean. Shall we? They all nodded as they advanced towards their seats. Debbie could only wish for an appetite to come. Please don't forget to subscribe and turn off the notification bell for the next episode. Also like and then leave a comment on your take about the story.